The following contest is scheduled for one fall, with a 60-minute time limit. Making their way down the aisle, Carlos, Mark, Nick, and Remy, the Entrance Ramp Podcast.
Hello and welcome to another entry of the Entrance Ramp Podcast. I'm your host, Nick Vega, alongside my co-host, Carlos Rodriguez.
Hey.
Mark Lindsay.
Good morning.
And Remy.
Howdy.
This show is a rapid-fire rundown of this week's events in wrestling with a set time limit on each topic. When the timer is over, you will hear the bell. Our first topic tonight is Monday Night Raw. So, gentlemen, the first question I pose to you is the first segment of Monday Night Raw. Randy Orton, his explanation or lack thereof. What do you gentlemen think about going forward? Will he give one or will he just remain silent? Carlos.
I think he'll eventually give one, right? I think he will. I think he's going to milk it for a few weeks, and I think only Randy Orton is one of the few wrestlers that can have a segment that's a non-segment, and it'd be amazing. Like, especially because he's invested.
Just feeding off the crowd.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And when he's invested, we've talked about this before, like, when he's in, and it shows, and the product is so much better for that reason.
He's definitely a Hall of Famer. So,
yeah.
So Mark, I'll ask you the same question. What do you think going forward will be Randy Orton's mindset? Will he just wait for Edge to show up before he gives any sort of explanation?
I think you touched upon this earlier off the air when we discussed that you thought there was a second there where when he attacked Edge, that he was going to punt Edge in the head.
Right.
And we all know, first of all, Randy Orton, I'm a big fan of Orton because he's one of the current wrestlers that less is more. He doesn't have to have the whole big aerial arsenal and etc. He is less is more. He doesn't need to give an explanation now because how much time do we have between now and WrestleMania? That's what the match is for, right? They're not going to do it in Saudi Arabia.
No, this definitely be WrestleMania.
And why waste it with Elimination Chamber? They're setting this up for WrestleMania, and I'm okay with that. Draw it out another week. That's what the old school did. They're building to a match. They're giving it time. I have no problem with it. And we'll see if maybe we're seeing a little bit more of the Viper, the old, like, shaking his head, and that I hear voices in my head.
Well, Remy, do you think he's out to really injure Edge forever to just take him completely off the shelf?
You know, it's hard to say. I mean, in storyline, he's done a very good job of conveying somebody who's having an extreme case of mixed emotions. You know, it's like Randy Orton. I mean, this guy's his friend, and this is his boy right here. Mm-hmm. And you could tell, like, from the first attack, you know, Randy Orton is exceptional when he's motivated. He's incredibly boring when he's not. I think a lot of people, you know, will say that. Some of Orton's, you know, biggest fans. I agree with what you've said, where, you know, less is more. He embodies that old school approach, which is really good. I mean, for that first segment when he attacked Edge, he had the crowd eaten out of the palm of his hand, like just.
Well, to end that question, do you really think he's just going to hurt him? Do you think he wants to end his career for good? He wants that mantle.
You know, it's funny. That would be if you were looking for a trophy, that would be a pretty good one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Another Hall of Famer, you know.
Yep.
On your list of legends.
But I'd love to see RKO too. So I mean, you know, whatever. Rated RKO.
No, God, yeah. So good.
So what about Drew McIntyre? I guess I'll go to Remy starting this one. Drew McIntyre, you think he's coming into his own as a full babyface?
I mean, can Drew McIntyre be convincing as a full-on babyface? Should we, in this present, like, in the current, like, WWE product, should we have straight-up baby faces? I mean, there are very few people that are believable in that role. There are very few people that are pure baby faces that people buy it. We even look at, like, you know, to pivot over to AEW right now, you know, we look at, like, Cody, who some people might say is one of the best pure baby faces in the entire game.
Yeah, I agree with
that. You still have the threads there that you could twist this just as quickly with everything that MJF is saying and doing, where it's like, you know, you would buy it. You would believe that, maybe this guy isn't so noble. Maybe he's not so great. So you have, a guy like the Sinister Scott, the Scottish psychopath, Drew McIntyre. I don't think he should be a pure babyface.
So anti-hero.
Yeah.
Okay. And going into that, do you think Carlos, he definitely wins the belt at Mania? Is it like a definite now that the crowd is eating out of the palm of his hand sort of nowadays, and they're tired of Brock, per usual?
Yeah, I think we are tired of Brock, but I think Brock is into this match. I think Vince is into this match. I think Heyman's into this match. And I think Drew's the one who's going to topple him and then continue on with interesting storylines, probably with like a Seth Rollins, like Mark mentioned last week, or playoff like anyone, Joe. Anybody can work with him. And I think this is finally the prophecies fulfilled with Drew McIntyre.
So, Mark, to finish up that question, do you think if he wins the belt, he will keep that belt for a long time, or is it just another short run, i.e. Seth Rollins?
I see it being a short run, and I hate to say that because I think he's deserved it over the last few years. He's really reestablished himself. He got fired, came back, worked his way up. Mm-hmm. And personally, getting off the topic a little bit, I would love to see him against Seth Rollins, Buddy Murphy, the AOP, mm-hmm. and bring back Jinder Mahal, and I Got Kids. 3MB reunion, baby. I mean, what, right? Wouldn't that be fun? No, all three of those guys had that horrible gimmick a few years ago, and they've all worked. Jinder Mahal, former champion. We haven't really seen him too much because he's Jinder Mahal. I mean, that's kind of what I'm afraid of. They're going to give Drew McIntyre the chance to be a champion. We're going to think he's doing good, but the money may not come in, or the ratings may go down, and then one and done.
Yeah.
There's Miz. Miz has never had another world title shot since losing the belt.
Yeah, one and done.
It's one and done, and I think that's
add credibility. I would assume.
So I'm hoping that Drew can prove me wrong, but I don't see it happening.
To like pivot really quickly, because I find this funny. Can you imagine a 3MB reunion where you have former world champions Jinder Mahal
and Heath
Drew McIntyre trying to cheer on Heath Slater to win the world?
I love it. I love it, right?
You got to do this. We got even to tell. You can do it. I believe in you.
The most decorated stable since the Shield.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I guess that's my next question. I'll go right to you, Mark. Rollins, is his faction big enough for 4? This whole Messiah thing sounds like a church, and usually churches are pretty big. So I would assume that we'll see more members as we go.
I am a big fan of big stables. I know that we have trios. I know that we have tag teams. I know that we have elites, okay? But I love when it's a stable, I want a 5-on-1, 6-on-1, 10-on-2 beatdown.
Gotcha.
I don't want a 3. Because we asked this question last week. Why didn't anybody save Edge?
Yeah.
Edge is a very popular, well-liked guy. Nobody saved him. Yeah. Same thing can be said here. You have Samoa Joe. You have Kevin Owens going after these guys. But nobody saved Kevin Owens. No one saves them other than Joe.
I mean, the Viking Raiders are like 50-50 how they're being booked right now.
Yeah.
What do you think, Carlos? Do you think any more members or just stay at pat?
No. I think you would add a couple members just to even it out.
Who's popping in your head right now? Right now, off the top of your head, who would you say is the next person to join the Monday Night Messiah?
I would add a woman.
A woman?
I would add a woman. I would add.
Oh, I wonder who.
Becky.
Yeah, right.
Becky. I would add her maybe after if she drops the title.
That has to be a heel turn though.
It would. I don't know how. If the plans are Baszler, Becky at Mania,
and Ronda's supposed to screw Becky. That's the rumor floating around.
Okay, it can finally break her. But then how do you keep Baszler a face? She's so good as a heel.
She can probably remain a heel. I mean, there's no reason to change Baszler just because.
That's a fair point. Yeah.
Becky is doing, you know.
Yeah. But
I'm supposed to be the hero technically in this whole thing.
That'd be interesting to see it completely full circle. I think it'd be cool.
So, Remy, do you think it's going to be Becky Lynch, a woman? Or do you think a man will join the stable and continue, the Monday Night Messiah's crusade?
Well, so again, I think the difficulty with this is if you have Becky Lynch sort of joining a stable like this, part of how you have stables is how you're going to book matches. And you look at, that's kind of tricky for me. I mean, 4 isn't really a great number for any stable. Odd numbers are kind of magic in this scenario. 5 is a good number. I think 7 is a good number. I couldn't see it with Becky Lynch personally. I think they want to keep Rollins and, Lynch kind of separate from one another, and I think they'll probably continue to do so. So that's a tough call for me.
Plus, the man isn't as over now as she was, this time last year. She was really over last year.
She was really over.
She's lost some steam.
She's still very over.
She is.
Yeah. She had the two shades on this week.
Yeah, I can see them being a similar to a Triple H Stephanie McMahon. But both are wrestlers.
Like running the corporate kind of deal.
Yeah, just kind of moving on from there, like top brass.
Triple H and Stephanie love them too, so I mean,
yeah, that's fair. Yeah,
you could pass the torch, or maybe even include Triple H and Stephanie in a whole thing. Like we have not only the backing of our people and our stable, but we have the backing of the actual corporation above us.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that rolls into my last question for Monday Night Raw. Ricochet won his triple threat match versus Seth Rollins, the Monday Night Messiah, and Bobby Lashley, who existed. And I just want you to know, is this just like obviously a blow-off? Hey, we need a match for the Saudi show. Let's just, keep it rolling. Or is it something like Eddie Guerrero where out of nowhere he steals the title and now you have a triple threat match?
Wow, I think a triple threat match would be cool. I think it's just a blowover just to have a match at Super Showdown. Not that it's anything toward Ricochet. I think it's well deserved that he gets like a main event shot. Heyman obviously loves him. Us as wrestling fans have loved him since like Prince Puma and all that other stuff. Like, I think it's just like, hey man, good job, thank you. And Brock likes working with small guys, and he already likes it. You already tell. Brock's invested too.
So, Mark, do you think that Ricochet may be with a heel turn? Everybody seems to be turning on him.
Nah.
In
no heel turn,
world.
and I'm going to make this short and sweet. No, Ricochet will not win the belt. No. What I'd like to see, fantasy booking, yes, win the belt, make it a triple threat match. I personally think that Saudi Arabia, correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't know 100%, has never had a world title change, correct?
Correct.
No. I thought it had The Fiend, right? That's where he won?
Oh, yeah, he actually did win that.
Okay, so then take that back. I was going to say, they were, we don't have to worry about the end of the show, correct my mistake. I would have loved to have seen if it never had happened before, yes, pull the trigger, because they're going to be in Saudi Arabia multiple more times. They're going to need big marquee matches. They're going to need people to tune in, because quite frankly, we're not. A lot of people, for political reasons, aren't watching the show in Saudi Arabia.
Right.
So they're making all these matches for them, but not really for the American fans here.
Right.
So, but you know what? No, it's not going to happen.
So Remy, any chance Ricochet wins this belt?
Absolutely not.
Zero? Less than zero?
Well, I don't think anything's less than zero. You can do quantum mathematics. Nothing ever even approaches 0% probability. So, with Ricochet, I mean, if the way that I personally would, look at this being booked is, kind of classic. Like, Ricochet has, a good claim, a very valid claim to Brock Lesnar's, elimination. So now it comes down to, you pit Ricochet up against McIntyre, in the short term to keep both of these guys kind of hot, like moving, toward WrestleMania, where, McIntyre is going to have to go up against Lesnar. I hope he wins. I want him to win. I think winning is the right call to make. For McIntyre, that is. But Ricochet, I think should, stay in the upper card where he is, like, kind of at the moment. But not, I don't see it, making sense for him to win.
And that is the end of Monday Night Raw. We'll shift over to Mark for WWE NXT.
Well, this past week's NXT was, I think it kind of fell flat, if I'm being honest. I think WWE pulled out all stops to try and have NXT win the ratings battle against AEW. They announced Charlotte Flair was going to answer Rhea's challenge. And in that segment, I love the segment, don't get me wrong, but it kind of fell flat. See, supposed to answer Rhea Ripley's challenge for the NXT title, and Bianca Belair ended up, getting involved and took exception to Flair's diss and attacked her, and that was pretty well done.
There was a good Mean Girls reference, too.
Right, exactly. And what I liked about that is it kind of gave Charlotte something to do, before WrestleMania. If she's going to challenge, if she's going to answer Rhea Ripley's challenge, which we don't know if she will or not, it gives us something for either NXT Portland next week, not tonight, or it gives us something to build towards on TV to get to WrestleMania. Will Bianca Belair do one of those? And this is my question to you, Nick. Will Bianca Belair use this opportunity to say, hey, you won that Royal Rumble match. I'm challenging you at insert show here for that opportunity at WrestleMania?
For Charlotte?
Yeah.
Possibly. I mean, when you look at Bianca Belair, she had a star-making performance in the Royal Rumble. She, I'm assuming she was that woman Royal Rumble Iron Man. If not, maybe Beth Phoenix. I might be off on the numbers here.
Beth Phoenix should have been with that nasty cut on the back.
She probably overall was. But in terms of people knowing who Bianca Belair versus Beth Phoenix is, most people probably didn't know who Bianca Belair is on the main roster. So I can see her definitely trying to insert herself into the title picture because NXT is its own brand now, and she doesn't have to branch out to Raw or SmackDown to be noticed. She can be noticed by wrestling Charlotte Flair and Rhea Ripley.
Mm-hmm. What say you, Carlos?
I say, yeah, I like that idea. I like that fantasy booking. I think Bianca, in my opinion, was the star-making performance of both Rumbles, men and women. I think she had the best showing that night. And I think playing off of Charlotte, I think Charlotte seems invested. She does good work no matter what, though. So that's not too surprising in that sense. But I would hope that it would build to a triple threat at Mania. Ripley, Bianca, Charlotte. Whoever wins, I think, is fine. But I think a triple threat showcasing all three talents would be amazing at Mania.
So I am not as up to date on NXT as the rest of you. So if you guys want to carry this a little further, that's fine in my book. I do agree with you about Bianca Belair in the Rumble, though. Like, that was an absolute star-making performance. And I mean, it's another one of those people that I want to see just go higher and higher on the card.
Well, she could definitely make a run for the NXT title. I think she maybe have a little bit more work, in the mic work area, but that'll just come with time, and with time, she'll blossom.
Well, we also had another major, angle, debut, re-debut, return. One of my favorites, the Velveteen Dream, has returned.
Yes,
my favorite.
And he inserts himself right back into a feud with the Undisputed Era, specifically Roderick Strong, who he had defeated for the North American Championship. Roderick Strong defeated him for the North American Championship back in September. Velveteen Dream, one of my favorite characters, always pays homage to the old school. Came out once repping Hulk Hogan, came out multiple times repping Sting and other. This week he pays homage to the late great ravishing Rick Rude.
Oh my God!
He has tights.
Yes.
Basically pointing to Roderick Strong's wife
and child.
I loved it.
With him as the father, that was the best. And on the back, if I'm incorrect, right? Didn't it say "Call me Marina"?
Yes.
Yes. Oh my God.
So Velveteen Dream has returned from injury. I'm very happy to have him back because I think he's one of the true. Like, this guy competed. Was it Tough Enough or where was it that
it was Tough Enough?
And he competed on Tough Enough, and you didn't think this guy stood a chance. And he again dedicated himself to being. And he is one of the most over talents. And that's hard to say in NXT because that Ciampa, Gargano, Cole, Undisputed Era, all over. But Velveteen Dream finds himself right at that upper echelon. And that kind of leads to my question, and I'm going to start with Remy. The Dream has the charisma, has the in-ring talent. Does he stay in that North American title picture, or does he kind of stay in maybe a holding pattern until he challenges for the big prize?
So that's really hard to say because when you have somebody coming off of injury and you have somebody making their return, usually you want to try to, push them into big things while the crowd is still invested. And we've seen it multiple times on the main roster where people have big returns and they fizzle out, just completely. So, I mean, you have, and I mean this in the best way, you have a character like Velveteen Dream who I think would provide a great shot in the arm into NXT's main title picture, where he doesn't need to be a mid-card guy right now, whether they do it or not. I stay the route of skepticism.
Mm-hmm.
that's an incredibly hard show to book. I think they do an incredibly good job with it, like most weeks. You know, when, as you sort of said earlier, when they're not trying to win the ratings battle, when they just focus on what they do well. So it's funny. Dream kind of lost me maybe a year or two back with some of his commentary on Twitter regarding, you know, how actors should portray roles, but it works for him. So who am I to argue?
Right. Carlos, Nick, real quick, yes or no? Holding pattern or world title?
World title in 6 months.
Yeah, I agree. World title in 6 months, but he has to go through Roderick just to get that win back, that fight back.
Holding pattern now, heading into WrestleMania.
He has to get through WrestleMania season. There's too many other things moving, and the good thing about Velveteen Dream, just to get through real quick, I like the fact that he is neither a heel nor face. There is no real dynamic other than he is a wrestler and that he is trying to win.
And then we have one more point here. I'm going to ask you this. You guys, we were joking earlier off air that you guys were born in the early 90s, and I'm the old head of the show. NXT as a whole brand kind of reminds me of WWF 2000. And what I mean by that is that there are a number of people at the top of the card that at any given time could defeat person A, could defeat person G, and you don't blink an eye. Oh, that was, you know what? They're on the same page. Top tier of NXT, the top level, the main event talent is there. You got Cole, you got Ciampa, Gargano, Finn Balor has revitalized his career. The Velveteen Dream, Keith Lee, Walter, and again, I'm starting to watch a little bit more UK. Should they stay here, or are they going to be moving on to the main roster? And if they do, who's that next level of talent that's going to take their place? Nick?
No. I think NXT is its own brand now. It has its own power, and it's its own thing. They should stay and build it up. There's no need to go to Raw or SmackDown because they're two totally different shows, not really even on the same wavelength. If they want to just, continue to wrestle and, portray their characters and craft their characters, I say they stay at NXT, build it up, and keep doing this intertwining thing that they're doing little by little where every show is coming together somehow, some way.
Carlos?
I think out of everyone that I can see in this, hypothetical situation would be Dream. And I thought it was going to happen last year. I would say now I could see it happen next year, only because he's so over. And it's not just with us. I think it's with the backstage. I think his work ethics are probably uncomparable to anybody else. He's so young. And you have a lot of bigger stars that look at him and see him as the future. John Cena said it. He's the one to look for. He's his pick to the future of WWE. So if you have, John Cena himself, Superman basically, saying this is the next guy, that's the next guy.
Mm-hmm.
So I agree with what Nick has said, and I think it's been kind of stated even by Hunter that they don't want to think of NXT right now, especially in terms of the Wednesday Night War, as being a development brand. They want it to be a fully fledged third brand of WWE.
No, I get that, and I don't want to argue with you guys. But if you're Adam Cole and you're making X $100,000 in NXT, but if you go to the main roster, your merchandising, your contract could be high. I mean, yeah, I hear that, and as a wrestling fan, I'm sorry, I want that. But at what point does the wrestler say, you know what, I want more?
Yeah. Well, it's been a sore point for, I think, a lot of people on that roster. If, the rumors hold any weight, which, I don't like to deal in rumors personally. But to sort of backpedal, I would do one in reverse, and I would like to see more people from the main roster come to NXT. And I don't know how that would affect their backstage politics.
Right. Well, we saw how that worked for Balor, and Charlotte went back.
I think the money thing will eventually come along as, they come along. Because if they're pulling in, 1.5, 2 million people per week, that's almost as good as the main shows we're pulling in 2.5.
Well, that's true, but keep in mind they're in Full Sail University, so they're not going to be getting a live gate like if they come to Philadelphia and sell up for the Royal Rumble, for example, they're going to make a good gate, but they're not leaving full sale. They only have a couple thousand tickets each week. They'll make their money on the Portland show and the takeovers and stuff.
They'll make their money on the takeovers, but like I said, that just comes with time. But I think if you build that brand up to be what it should be, like Remy was saying, you'll start seeing weaving of all the rosters, and then that'll make the draft way more interesting. That'll make everything else about WWE way more interesting. You keep matchups fresh, and then the money and the merchandising will come along. Because, we live in the digital age. You can buy anything anywhere, so I don't see why they can't push it the same way they could push, The Rock's t-shirt. Even though, The Rock's.
Yeah, The Rock is The Rock.
Right. So it's to an Eskimo.
Well, I don't want to lash out at you guys. I'm sorry, I said lash. Remy, tell us about AEW this week.
Well, so I guess I'll open with a question, which is what I had found interesting at the beginning of the show is, are we seeing the first cracks in the inner circle? And as one of, I suppose as one of my, my friend Lee had sort of joked, do you think everybody is going to lose an eye at the time this storyline has kind of reached its natural
Star Wars,
conclusion?
yeah.
Well, there's an eye for an eye match this week, right?
Yeah.
Santana versus Moxley.
That's right.
What's the actual description of that? Am I going to see someone get their eye spooned out?
I hope not, because
Tony Khan's got the money to replace it.
Robotic guys,
Yeah. I want to see.
I'm not entirely sure, but I would think that I would like you to explain the cracks in the. I don't think I saw that.
Okay. Well, so it's interesting because I think they've booked the inner circle in a way this is sort of atypical of what we see in larger factions, and I think it is a little bit meta at times because I had thought about this earlier in the show when you first had Moxley take out Ortiz and then take out Santana and then say, well, you took my eye, I'm going to take this guy's eye, and you had Jericho and everybody else up on stage fail to run in, and granted in a hostage situation, I wouldn't have rushed to the ring either, but I think in a normal faction, that might cause a little bit of, resentment. I don't know how it really works in regards to the inner circle.
Well, see, I could definitely see the cracks in the sense of what Remy just brought up in this, with them coming down to the ring, not having my back, he almost took my livelihood, my eye, that I could see that, but not just yet because of the fact they had that promo where he's like, Moxley, I'm just going to come kick your ass. That to me is just, more unity for now.
See, I found that interesting because I thought there were cracks earlier because I don't think I can remember the last time Sammy Guevara won a match. Every time he's one-on-one, he's loses.
That's fair, yeah.
I think this year he's had a pretty good record, if I'm not mistaken, with his with the 2020 record. But yeah, last year he lost every match.
Yeah, he was like the fall guy.
He's the Brandon Cutler of the group. Which no offense to Brandon Cutler, he's awesome. It's just,
he's 2-1 this year. 2-1.
Oh, okay.
For Sammy Guevara, but I will say every match that he wins is tainted. Very, very tainted.
Yeah, fair.
And Jericho has him pegged as his protege, essentially. So we'll see how that goes.
Which I believe.
For now.
One thing I was kind of noticing this week around, which I thought was an improvement, is the match lengths on TV. For a while, I think we've had a lot of television matches that run too long or maybe too competitive, have too many near falls. How do you feel about the pacing of the show at this point, or the direction that it's heading in? And I guess I'll open with you again. Well,
they're able to maintain that commercial in screen or the dual screen. I just think Raw has I don't know if perfected it because there's something they need to improve upon it. I'll say that they need to improve it. If they're going to have an introduction, you want Jericho's introduction. The entire audience has sung his song. That's a cool entrance.
Yeah.
In fact, I think they're cutting that off too soon because the fans just continue singing it to the chorus anyway. They should extend that by 10 seconds and maybe just find other areas to chop, because WWE, they'll do the introductions, have something for the live crowd, and then come back and ring the bell and you see the entire match. So there has to be some kind of change for the pace.
Yeah, I actually saw something similar to that. I have notes for a little off topic for Smackdown. Most of the entrances were cut off except for, like, especially in the main event, none of the women got showcased their entrances other than Naomi, and that gave time because her entrance is the most dynamic. So why not showcase that for a TV crowd? Especially,
which is odd because you would have thought they would have saved that for the person going over.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, you would think Carmella would have been the one. Yeah, but yeah, I think you're right. Like, I think they just need to tighten the ship a little bit. I mean, they got their media group or like their backstage last minute before Dynamite was on air. It was like a week or two before they took Impact's like complete group because they wanted a better contract with Impact. Impact said no, so they were like, "Oh, we'll offer you money. Come over here." So I think they just need to find a gel. I mean, I'm sure in like a month or two, if this is still an issue, I think it definitely needs to be addressed. It definitely needs to. We're still in like the weird growing pains for this show and this company or what it is going to be.
Yeah, when it comes down to pacing, it's all about how it's portrayed to the live audience, because as a viewer you feed off the live audience, and we've been in that live crowd before, and sometimes the pacing is just way off. Sometimes we can't hear things, so I guess that goes all down to baby steps, like Carlos said, for production. It goes down to baby steps for the commentary team gelling very well, because that's a big thing for me against AEW. I love JR, really love JR, but I just don't feel like he should be doing this anymore, at least not on a full-time basis. Maybe have him do backstage interviews where he's talking to people, like how his Kane interviews went. Those would be great, but I think they'll eventually get better, as any company would with growing pains.
So I guess that brings me back around to the next little bit I have, which is Hangman Page and his magic beer.
Yeah.
I'll open with you, Carlos. I mean, how do you feel about the entertainment value of this storyline, like where they're going with this right now? Because for me, I think it's the most pure, fun kind of story. It's both the most pure, fun, and kind of well-woven storyline they have going on right now. Yeah,
I agree. To kind of quote or I'm probably misquoting this. Brian Zane from Wrestling Regret with his Wednesday Night Warfare recap. He is both compelling in a serious side and compelling from a funny side. Absolutely. It's an odd angle to have where he's drunk all the time, and it's played both for laughs and for a serious factor where he feels disillusioned by the elite in his position. He always felt odd man out, and it's starting to show he doesn't care anymore. He is a champion, and he doesn't care anymore. And he doesn't care about Matt or Nick or Kenny, his own partner.
See, that's where I'm going to disagree slightly. If you watch I watched a few of the AEW this week, a few things. And one of the things I saw, and I think JR made a point of it, was that he only tagged in Omega. He never tagged in a Young Buck.
He's playing a very nuanced character.
Right.
Yeah, it really
is.
So,
if anything, I think he is dedicated to his tag team with Omega. But as far as the elite, and that's kind of where I see this thing going. I think we're all expecting some huge Hangman Page turn. I think it's going to be Kenny that turns on the Bucks. I think it's going to be Kenny that says, you know what, we are the tag team champions, and I'm sorry, Nick and Matt, we're done. Our friendship's done. No, not while I'm champion.
Well, don't they have a matchup coming up soon, or no?
It was alluded to. I think.
I felt like they were coming after those belts. That's what it felt like.
They drop hints every week on that show, and especially when you have an 8-man tag and they're both teaming up with each other. Yeah, it's going to happen.
I definitely support the idea that Kenny Omega, maybe not a heel turn.
Yeah, right. No heel turn. You don't need to be heel.
Right. But just like, listen, this is my partner. I'm not going to let you beat up on him. I know he's a dick, but it's okay. He's my dick.
Yeah. Oh wait, that didn't sound right.
Edit that all out. I could definitely see Hangman Adam Page continuing to play this role of this drunken idiot, but he can go in the ring, and as he goes, he'll win more, and maybe that'll give him infinite confidence until he crashes and burns fully again. Where that ends up, I really don't know. I feel like the end game is definitely Omega versus Page, but Omega's got a lot of problems, including Pac.
Well, I was just gonna say Pac. So is that match happening this week on Dynamite, or are they saving? They're not saving that for Revolution, right?
I think they're saving it for Revolution. I think
Pac and Omega. Okay.
Yeah.
Seems like a
He
Revolution
was
match.
just trying to get like a verbal yes on it. So
Yes.
I was, I guess to sort of wrap that up, what I've also been getting out of this is shades of, Team Hell No from a while back.
Hug it out.
I'm the tag team champion.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
That's fair.
That seems to be his whole approach. So I guess where I'm closing up with AEW this week is it's not even a question, just a talking point. Might be able to save some of this for a little later. So I'll just get to the one thing in there, which is giving Wardlow that 9th lash was a damn good piece of business. Because that was, they had no heat in my book up to that point. Now all of a sudden it's like it's pretty personal. So I haven't heard as much from you so far, Nick. So I guess we can open on this here with you.
Well, what is your question? Is like, how do I feel about Wardlow?
I guess just everything that's coming up, like
Oh, okay, I see.
Like-
You did say it was a talking point. So I guess when it comes to the whole Cody thing, I totally agree. We talked about this off air that Wardlow hit, he like stepped up into it. And for a lot of those lashes, I'm like, okay, just take the lashing, clinch, it hurts, whatever. But that last one, that gave me my mama views, It hurt.
Tommy Dreamer once said in ECW when the Sandman caned him that he didn't feel it after the 3rd one. But I forget which one of you texted it. It was like watching the Passion of the Christ. That was great.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
There was like a minute and a half, 2 minutes between each one. So I guarantee you, Cody felt all of them. Okay,
Right.
There was no numbness. There was no, okay, I'm in pain now, I might as well get it. There was no 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It was spread out. It was done so well and so violently and so cringeworthy. I can't wait to watch the match with MJF.
Yeah, who would have thought that a 10 lashing? I don't know if I mentioned it last week or I may have been off air. I thought I wasn't too into it. Like, I was like, this is going to be a dumb segment, and it showed and is the most compelling segment of the week.
Yeah.
Of all the shows, all 4 shows. It is painful to watch. I'm glad they released it on YouTube, so if you somehow missed it or whatever, you can just see this segment in its entirety. It's so compelling. Brandy was compelling. Dustin was compelling. The Bucks were compelling. Everyone, every part of it. And Cody, to his credit, is just, he is making a star out of himself, the company. I've never seen someone hurt themselves so bad for a company. Like, physically just put himself through so much.
Well, he wants it. You can tell in his face every week. He does everything possible. We don't obviously see what he does backstage or when the cameras are off, but I'm sure he's on a flight every couple hours flying every which way to promote this. So he's going to take all the bumps that he possibly can.
Well, and in the 80s, this 10 lashes was almost like a comical joke. Jim Cornette would have the Midnight Express going against the Fantastics, and if the Fantastics won, Cornette would get 10 lashes, and they bent him over the knee and did 3 or 4 before Cornette scooted away and got away. It was done in like a heel jokey comedy kind of way. There was no comedy. This was violent. This was at times hard to watch, and it got me so I'm like, you know what? We're gonna have to see this. We're gonna have to see this through.
Yeah.
And we still have a cage match next week.
Yeah, that whole segment is great. The only problem I have is at the end, why nobody jumped on MJF and let him get that low blow is beyond me. Why he stayed in the ring longer than 0.2 seconds.
Right.
I don't. I was expecting,
why didn't they super kick him or
I was
something?
expecting Dustin to just come in there and clock him.
Yeah, anything at that point. Yeah, but God, how about Cody's like just acting? I feel like he must have learned from Stephen Amell. Like in their friendship, like I think he was already in WWE, but I think their friendship has built something that where he can play off. Like he must have learned some kind of technique.
I'm sure Vince is in a corner somewhere saying, "Damn, why did I teach him that?"
Yeah, right.
I mean, you look at a lot of the guys though that really know how to work on TV and will work on TV very well, and it is a lot of people that either were in WWE or have really like had an excellent entrepreneurial sense in the independent circuit. So I guess at this point we're moving on to you, Carlos, and Smackdown Live.
All right, yes, Smackdown Live on Friday night. So show opened up with Miz and Morrison. And they had their dirt sheet, which hasn't been seen in quite a few years.
Once upon a time.
Yeah, once upon a time in a dirt sheet. So I want to pose actually this question. How do you guys feel about these comedy spots where, I mean, it's been around forever, obviously, and it feels like almost like a relic of like 10 years ago, but I felt it was welcomed in this sense. Like Once Upon a Time in the dirt sheet was a really fun segment to open up the show, and having like the little Lance Storm cameo and stuff.
I'm sure I'll get a lot of backlash for this, but in my opinion, Miz TV is the greatest in the ring talk show that WWE has produced. I know you have Piper's Pit. I know you have a Moment of Bliss and all these other shows.
Brother Love, hello.
Yeah. Heartbreak Hotel.
Well,
the barbershop.
Oh yeah.
A little before my time.
Yep.
He was super kicking before I was even kicking. So I just feel as though the longevity of it. So the Miz is great at being a talk show host. That's my gist. It's not because the show itself is the greatest, but Miz as a performer is just great on the mic, and he can carry segments even if it sounds silly.
Well, I did not watch SmackDown last night. I saw bits and pieces because I saw the big news that came out. But I would say this, the question I posed last week kind of came to fruition. Miz was part of the attack last night with Morrison, right? He didn't hold back. So did Miz go full on heel last night?
Yeah, I was under the impression that he did in this sense. It still feels like a reluctancy, like not that it's been addressed, but it feels like he's feeling that he's answering to everyone criticizing him and his losing. And it goes kind of to what Nick's been saying, where the Fiend changes you. You lose. He even lose to the Fiend. He just lost to Bray Wyatt. And even that itself is just like enough for the Miz to be like, F it, I'm done. Like Morrison's in, we're gonna run roughshod again.
It's interesting that that's supposed to be kind of embarrassing though, right?
Yeah. He didn't even get the Fiend at
you're
that.
not
Yeah.
supposed to be losing to like the children's TV host.
Yeah. You have to lose to the monster.
Getting beat up by Steve
Poor
from
Miz.
Blue's Clues. I mean,
There you go. Yeah.
Losing to children's hosts and losing to the best in the world.
I mean, Miz, I respectfully disagree with you on Miz TV, being the best in-ring sort of interview segment. Although I guess the question in there, which, is rhetorical, would you rather have something that's, consistently good or occasionally great? So with Miz always does his best work when he's got a chip on his shoulder. And, I mean, there's all the ingredients for this to be great.
All right, so that brings me to my second talking point, or, kind of segment thing. We have another match with King Corbin and Roman Reigns. What are we going to do about this, guys? I mean, we...
Another one?
We're not going to watch SmackDown. That's what we're going to do.
Yeah, I know. Last week I thought we were done, and it started again with the damn dog food. We started with the dog food, and now we have Corbin kind of just finally pissed. I think this is finally going to be the blowover, in my opinion.
Finally?
After like 16 matches.
Point, I feel like I should look for DJ Khaled.
Yeah, another one.
Yeah.
It
just continues.
Yeah, and I mean, him hitting the production guy because he's just finally pissed, and cool cameo by Sanjay Dutt, and as a producer. But a steel cage match, I think it's fine at Super Showdown. I think hopefully this is just a holdover until Roman goes after the Fiend, which that's my assumption. What do you guys want to, Mark? What would you suggest?
Well, no, I agree with you. I think this is it's a holdover. But if that's the case, why they had a great match at the Royal Rumble? I thought that was a fantastic,
it was a good opener,
and a great opener, but it was a great match. Mm-hmm. And the fans, they didn't do the booing Roman because it's cool. They cheered to win. Yeah. That should have been it.
Yeah.
And okay,
on the dugout.
But on top of the dugout.
Yeah, it was cool.
But I understand the one last hurrah on SmackDown because you're giving your TV audience on Fox the blow off. You're giving Fox the blow off, not just on the network.
But why have the 6-man tag match last week?
But that should have been it. That should have been it. That should have been done. There should be no more. If I'm Baron Corbin, I'm like, okay, I'm going to set my sights on somebody I can beat. Heath Slater.
Well, Daniel Bryan beat the crap out of Heath Slater this week. Like I don't understand that.
Which randomly, just to be off topic about that, Glenn created to what you've been saying recently about the Fiend changing him, because Michael Cole mentioned it in all commentary. He's like, anybody that interacts with the Fiend has changed, and Daniel Bryan just ran roughshod over Heath Slater.
Took lashings after lashings, like you know, before Cody. There was Daniel Bryan.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and before Cody, there was Bray Wyatt, because those shots that Daniel Bryan, gave the Fiend before the Fiend just put the mandible claw on, they were on the chest, man.
Yep.
Again, you're talking shots on the back, shots on the. If I'm going to take lashings, I want it on the back, not the. And Bray Wyatt took those things on the chest. Oh, tough to watch too.
I mean, like to pivot back to this, this whole feud. You have two great guys. I mean, the genius of pairing Reigns up with Corbin is nobody would possibly want to boo Reigns more than Corbin. I mean, this guy unfortunately has attracted the wrong kind of heat a lot of the time, but I think they'll continue to utilize him in this role. It's just a shame that we have this ongoing feud when these guys have good in-ring chemistry together and absolutely awful storyline. Atrocious, terrible, like one of the worst storylines I've seen in recent years to kind of like work back around into it. I mean, I can't say enough about how much I just wish it was over.
Yeah, well, thank God for Super Showdown coming up. Alrighty. So our next topic for SmackDown will be the main event, which was a fatal four-way match between Alexa Bliss, Dana Brooke, Carmella, and Naomi. Now, we just talked about how the Roman match was a holdover, we're assuming, to like WrestleMania, but it's been too long. It's like a weird holding pattern. I think this is probably the best holdover pattern that we've seen so far on SmackDown, where Carmella is the one who wins the match, not Naomi, who we all assume since she's a returning person. Now, obviously, I saw that. Main thought was, okay, cool. Carmella's back in the main event picture.
Corey Graves.
Corey Graves. Hey, she's good on her own. Yeah, she's great. Now we have her going after Bayley. I think it's going to be a fun match. I think it's going to be a decent match. Bayley's obviously going to win, and I think that's going to lead to something at an Elimination Chamber, something down the line where Naomi wins, and that match is set for WrestleMania. It's a perfect holding pattern. I think it doesn't take away from anything from Carmella. I think we're going to get a really, really fun match out of that. But where do you guys see, in my point of view, the women on SmackDown are top tier, and the men's storylines so far have been pretty bad.
I agree with that. Yeah. It's interesting because if you look at this in a vacuum, I mean, Carmella is, correct me if I'm wrong, 2-time Money in the Bank winner.
Yes, technically.
Yeah, technically.
Thanks, James Ellsworth.
So
that's the only time we'll talk about him.
in a vacuum, a good competitor, and you could look at this as a match that anybody could win. But yeah, if you're looking more long term, I mean, it makes sense for Bayley to go over in this match. I'm not sure. Oh, I'm sorry.
No,
I don't know if it'll deliver in ring.
Did Naomi take the pinfall? I didn't watch much of SmackDown this week.
No. She was it Dana Brooke or Alexa? Someone took the. I can't remember who took the pinfall. I don't know why, but it was Naomi hit the hip check.
Okay.
Or the rear view. I'm sorry. Right. On I want to say Alexa. Yeah, I think it was Alexa that took the pin, which is I don't.
Well,
yeah, it's not the worst thing.
Yeah.
It was very surprising to see Carmella win. I thought that was interesting. And also that being the main event, I thought that was really interesting. But
I think it could set up to what we talked about last week, a female elimination chamber. You can have that match be a match on the Elimination Chamber show or Saudi Arabia.
Did they have that last year?
They did. There was, but it was a women's tag. Yeah, okay. So that's how that was determined. Okay. Thank you, RestPass, for that one.
So again, I don't know if they're going to have this Carmella. I mean, if they're going to have Carmella challenge for the women's title, all due respect to Carmella, they should do that in Saudi Arabia so I don't have to watch it.
That'll probably be what happens because Carmella has almost zero credibility at beating Bayley at this point.
I know, which is sad.
I mean, she's coming off of comedic relief.
Yeah,
that's true. Yeah,
back to normal.
Bayley's held the belt for almost 300 days. We can chop it up however you want about Bayley, but the woman can wrestle.
Yeah.
And not only can she wrestle, but she can hold that title. So I would be surprised if Naomi even got to WrestleMania. I would think Elimination Chamber sounds about right for Naomi versus Bayley. Because wouldn't you think Sasha would be the end game?
Yeah, but I think she might be injured though, especially with
WrestleMania.
I don't know. I don't know how severe her ankle injury is. She's just revealing it for the first time to the public. So I don't know how WWE's weird. I don't know if like they should talk about it more. But like, hey, this person's hurt. Like, let's talk. It seems with NXT with they have that injury report that they're a little more honest. Like Ciampa looks like he hurt his ankle. I don't know how legit that is. All right, so final talking point is we have one of the main events for Super Showdown, and it is Goldberg challenging The Fiend to a match. And I don't know what you guys think. I mean, we have Goldberg, who was via satellite at his home, or Dominic Toretto's garage, and well, that's my second Fast and Furious thing in 2 weeks. But yeah, he felt like he hasn't had a title rematch since losing to Brock at WrestleMania for the Universal title, and he feels like he wants one, and of course he's a legend, so why not, right? What do you guys? What are your options, or what are your opinions on Goldberg versus The Fiend at Super Showdown? Mark.
I'm going to say this. Goldberg's not winning that belt.
Nope.
So the way it shapes up today, February 7th, 2020, I'm okay with it because there's no way Bray's losing that belt. You're going to get Bray Wyatt at WrestleMania as a champion, The Fiend, I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. And I'm okay with it because you're using a named star power like Bill Goldberg to put over a current talent, which was something he didn't do when he wrestled Kevin Owens during his last Universal title run. He buried Kevin Owens, and it was a whole shit show, part of my language. So I'm okay with it, because there's no way Bray Wyatt's losing that belt.
Personally, aside from the idea of, Goldberg putting over Bray Wyatt, I could not be less interested in this matchup. I look back to, when you had Goldberg coming back, to wrestle Brock Lesnar, and it's like, you're last. I felt something in all of that, which is like, okay, cool. He's going to come back for one last hurrah, one last showdown, wrap up his career the way that, he coulda, shoulda, woulda. And he just keeps coming back.
Yeah, it's very strange.
It's called money, Remy, okay? It's called cold, hard cash.
I feel nothing for this match. It's on a Thursday.
Right.
I'll be at work, so like the rest of us, we won't really have a chance to sit down and watch this.
Is that the worst thing though? Yeah.
It could be on in the background while we're.
It'll be on the second monitor. But I do like the fact that Goldberg, if it's what we all expect to happen, for him to lose, it's good for Bray Wyatt. It's just another name. It'd be interesting to see if Goldberg sticks around for maybe just one last run, and maybe that changes him, like it changed everybody else. Maybe he becomes, just a pure animal again and just starts running through people because he couldn't run through Bray Wyatt. Maybe, he gives Bray Wyatt 4 or 5 spears and, Bray just eats them and then gets right back up. I doubt it because his ego probably would not have let him.
No, but that pitch you made kind of sounds a little more compelling than anything I thought of.
Yeah, actually, that's a really good idea because, like, can you imagine a Goldberg who is changed by The Fiend so much that he goes back to that, very beginning of his run in WCW and just runs roughshod, just out of anger, pure anger. And fantasy booking in my brain, if it were to work, and I think he could pull it off, Daniel Bryan versus Goldberg.
Eventually, definitely not.
If that were the case, like at Mania,
SummerSlam,
SummerSlam's fine.
Some kind of big show, some kind of one of the big fours, but make it compelling where like Daniel Bryan's like, I can take you out.
I mean, side note, Daniel Bryan seems like he's different.
Yeah.
Very different. I mean, those lashings he took seemed like it very changed him very much.
Yeah, and you're correct. I mean, it's even showing on commentary now where they're mentioning that like you fight the Fiend, you get changed.
Well, it goes into our last segment of the day. What we're going to try to do now is have 3 minutes of each of us speaking about what we thought the most important thing in wrestling was this week. Let's start off with Carlos.
Alrighty, so this week I want to speak of WWE Backstage. Now, I'm very biased on this, but I want to speak to one Greg Miller, who's inspired me to do this podcast with you guys. And he is living his dream. And we have Daniel Bryan, who famously has said, if you fight for your dreams will fight for you. And it's partly comedic. I mean, if you guys don't really watch Kind of Funny content, but the KFBFs out there will understand. He's a character. He plays this gruesome Greggy, he calls himself. He's been a wrestling fan as long as we all have, since birth. He's a little lapsed now. He's a little busy doing his little PlayStation podcast and things like that nature and running a company. But he has friends in the industry, and it's starting to show. He gets opportunities like WWE Backstage, where he gets to cut this awesome promo in promo school against Xavier Woods. And it was a compelling segment, but for me, being a fan of wrestling and being a fan of Kind of Funny and him inspiring me to do this thing, I just want to talk about, like, for me, it was cool seeing someone follow their dreams and do something on this kind of stage. And I just want to give a shout out to Greg Miller. And also Austin Creed, a.k.a. Xavier Woods, his promo back to him was amazing on Twitter. If you guys ever get a chance to see it, it's really good. But I have like a more short, just a shout out this week for that.
Mark, do you have anything you would like to add?
My the way that you posed this was, what was the biggest topic for this week? I think it's today and tomorrow. And today and tomorrow is the re-debut of the XFL. So, what does that have to do with wrestling, you say? Well, I'm going to tell you what it has to do with wrestling. The XFL was a football league that Vince McMahon tried to bring into existence in, I think, 2001.
Oh, Mark, we know all about the XFL.
There you go. And people will blast the XFL, but let me tell you one name that came out of the XFL, and that's Tommy Maddox, who went on to quarterback the Pittsburgh Steelers before Ben Roethlisberger took over in 2003, I think, 2004.
3 or 4.
So my point is this. As a wrestling fan or wrestling fans, we all need the XFL to just succeed enough.
1 year. Just
No. I'm going to go further than that. I'll tell you why, Nick. If Vince McMahon, it has to succeed enough for at least 1 year.
That's what I mean.
So they bring another year.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
And Vince McMahon can focus on making money with the XFL and his Alpha Entertainment brand. In doing so, that just might give Triple H an opportunity to run the wrestling side of things. I can sit here with you guys and to our audience, thank you for watching on YouTube and listening on Facebook, that the NXT brand is my favorite brand of wrestling. It does not insult my intelligence. There is talent that I love to watch in the ring. The booking makes sense. Why can't Raw and SmackDown? We just had these conversations about what they're doing with this character and what they're doing with that, and we don't ask those questions at NXT. And even though NXT is my segment, I'm not trying to make this about me. The fact is, NXT makes sense. And the questions we ask about NXT are more like, will this happen? Will so-and-so do this? Will this character break through? We're not asking, why did that segment happen? Why did this person do that? We're asking logistic booking questions. So my closing point is with XFL. I want them to just succeed enough that Vince has to be hands-on and can relinquish some of the power of the wrestling side of his empire to Triple H. Just enough that the ratings are good, that ESPN and ABC will renew them for next year and the years down the road, and just enough that the booking of Raw and SmackDown can just elevate a little bit more. It'll never be NXT. The TV deals that Fox did were on par, were in place with the entertainment aspect of WWE. They're not going to change their whole programming. But if they're geared towards kids, parents take kids to wrestling, they can make a product that appeals to everybody.
Oh, they absolutely can. I mean, that's a very good point that you make, because I was thinking about that earlier, where the discussions about NXT are much more in depth, much more involved. We're not saying like, oh my god, I can't believe they did this on NXT. It's like there's a palpable sense of excitement about like who you think, you know, gets from point A to point B next, and not like I feel like, you know, this talent is incredibly wasted.
Yeah, Remy, you and me talked earlier in the week off air, obviously, but we spoke to NXT being the best brand probably in all of professional wrestling at this point. I mean, it has the marketability, it has, you know, storylines that make sense, it has the most likely the best men and women's roster that we've seen. I mean, you have like New Japan and things of that nature, but I think an overall American like broadband sense, NXT is the best and greatest brand that we have right now. And like Mark said, it doesn't hold your hand. It doesn't treat you like you're an idiot. It's reminiscent to me of Ruthless Aggression era Smackdown, where you had these 2 hours where you had some of the most compelling storylines, the best wrestling across Raw and SmackDown at that point, with Eddie and Edge and Rey Mysterio and Cena early on.
He whose name shall not be mentioned.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you had all this. You had this pool of talent, and everyone was hungry, and everything was changing the landscape. And this is what NXT is now. And Triple H has such an amazing eye for it, and I couldn't commend him more. It almost seems, from a wrestling standpoint and from a fan standpoint, strange to see Triple H give so much to younger talent because of the rise that he had. And speaking of that Ruthless Aggression, his Raw reign was too much to watch. I would turn toward SmackDown more because I didn't see Triple H being the champion every single day, month. Goldberg won, right? He beat him, not for long. Scott Steiner was supposed to be a contender, not for long. And it felt like he was burying talent, and now Triple H is in a position, at least objectively to me, where he can give back. Yeah. He's took it so much, now it's time to give back.
I think his real legacy, as I've said before, is going to be more outside the ring than in it, and that's not taking anything away from his career as a wrestler.
Yeah, he's the greatest politician to ever be between those ropes.
Yeah.
He politicked his way to the top.
Well, Hulk Hogan gets some credit, too.
He does, but Hulk Hogan was also suspended for a very long time and has a huge black cloud over him. The worst thing Triple H did was pretty much beat Booker T at WrestleMania.
Rewatch the Katie Vick angle.
Yeah, I was going to say, that was my thing. I was like, Katie Vick?
I thought we were not mentioning those things. I figured we wouldn't.
Poor Katie.
That was a bit of a run over.
So anyway, for me, my biggest talking point will probably be what happened last week that transitioned into this week, and that was the 2 firings from last week that we discussed.
Yep.
So that shook up the stock, and now all of a sudden WWE is looking to be purchased from another streaming service to stream their service. What does that mean to the WWE network? Am I going to lose all my content, or am I paying $10 just for old wrestling and, you know, a couple specials? Because I won't pay for that anymore.
Either will about 500,000 to 1 million other people.
Yeah, because you want the pay-per-views for the most part.
The UFC, you have to have an ESPN Plus account, which is a $50 a year subscription. And then each UFC match is like $60 or $65 on top of that.
I believe it's discounted through ESPN Plus.
Yeah, it's discounted to a point, but yeah, you're still paying extra. Like tonight, John Jones is fighting.
Right.
We'll have to pay extra if we want to see that.
Yeah,
So,
on top of your subscription.
I tell you what, I don't think it's good news. I mean, the stockholders will love it, especially if the rumored, you know, I'll save Carlos's thunder here. Especially if somebody buys the WWE network and streaming rights, it's great for the stockholders. It's not going to be great for the fans who's, you know, I pay $10 a month for the network. I steal my sister's Netflix, but I pay for Apple TV. I pay for our Apple TV Plus. I pay for all these other $10 a month charges that add up. I have no problem dropping network if they're not going to give me the live pay-per-views every month.
Well, now the question, you know, I guess that I'm thinking of with this whole conversation is, how much is Amazon going to charge me? Is it just, you know, under Amazon Prime for me to have?
Raise Prime to $150 and then Everything's
my
included.
God. Yeah, that I wouldn't be
That
be
wouldn't
shocked.
be too awful. Once
No,
a year,
right.
because you get all of Amazon.
Right.
But I mean, I guess we'll see how that pans out. My last thing for what is important to wrestling is obviously all the buzz surrounding this Undertaker and Sting thing. I am a sucker for nostalgia. You can put me up there with all the other marks who are suckers for nostalgia and may cause controversy or, issues with how the product is run because Vince loves pulling out nostalgia, but I am a sucker for it. I will be glued to my television screen if I could see 5 minutes of those old farts walking down the road.
I mean, do you think they could put a compelling match?
3 minutes.
Yeah, it'd be short.
3 minutes. You
Yeah.
get
4-minute intro for each. 4 minutes,
Yep.
full 4. I would say 5-minute match. No DQ, smoke and mirrors.
Right.
And maybe even pull the angle where Baron Corbin or somebody attacks both.
Jesus
And then
God.
you don't even have to have a finish.
No. I need a finish.
Well, then Sting has to go over. I'm sorry.
This, in my book, I would rather have Sting go over for one. I mean, for another, I think that this match should absolutely, under no circumstances, happen. I think time passed it by. And I think at this point, at both men's ages, and especially, I think Sting could still go. You've heard me say this before. It's Taker that I don't think has, what's required to pull through this. This matchup is better in our heads than it would ever possibly be in real life.
I'm with Nick. That's a risk I'm willing to take.
Yeah, I think all smoke and mirrors. Everyone at this table agrees that if we're doing 0 to 5 stars in terms of wrestling ability, it's probably a 0.25.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what? Stinger splash.
Yep.
Tombstone chokeslam.
Yep.
Just give me all the signature moves. We'll move on.
Hey, the last Goldberg and Lesnar match was pretty good at WrestleMania.
Yeah,
it was a 5-minute match.
Yeah, 5
done.
minutes, 5
That's
minutes.
all you needed to do. That's all you had to do here.
The thing is I'm glad you used that match because for the most part they have really boring entrances.
Mm-hmm.
Lesnar jumps 2 steps and then walks in. The coolest thing about his entrance was
breeze of smoke.
Was when he jumped on the ramp or jumped on the ring and the fireworks would shoot out. I don't think they do that anymore, but.
No, but I mean, and even I guess you can compare it to what Goldberg Undertaker at last year's Super Showdown. That wasn't that great.
No,
that's my worry.
Yeah.
But then you had the answer to that, which was Taker and Reigns versus was it Corbin?
The tag match, yeah.
Yeah, I forget who they wrestled. It was in Philly at Extreme Rules. That match was actually decent, and they didn't utilize like Undertaker to his full extent, which he can't really go as well anymore. But he was used so properly during that match that I was like, okay, yeah, this is good, but maybe stop.
I just think the entrances alone, like I think one that Goldberg and Undertaker match. That was all about money.
Mm-hmm.
They were like, hey, we're going to pay you X amount of dollars and show up in Saudi Arabia. So, for all I know, their equilibrium and their timing is all off because they're in Saudi Arabia. They're not in America. I think it would be totally different. And it's a D- show. It's like, it's not even a show that anybody really cares about. WrestleMania, I feel like they would get up and go. Maybe, like I said, nothing 0.25 in terms of wrestling scale, but just, the pomp and circus, like, that's all I'm there for.
So if it's all the same, I mean, I'd like to pull this back all the way to the network for a moment because everything that we've sort of discussed is kind of emblematic of WWE's biggest issue. And you mentioned, the network, and we look at this incredible library of legacy content, like the best deal imaginable.
Mm-hmm.
And what we've lost in the process is WWE feeling the need to put on truly great pay-per-views, like on the regular, because they already have those subscribers. So you don't have to worry as much about people purchasing your pay-per-views.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And it's constantly a case of, sacrificing the present day or the future of the company to look back, on this whole historic legacy of the past.
Yeah, I mean, look, just keep going just for a little bit. I mean, look at the SmackDown and Raw branded pay-per-views. I believe I mentioned that last week. They were with the network that it should have been a slam dunk. It should have been something that kept going, give credence to like the mid talent and lower talent for both shows to show them off. And if you're a subscriber, why not? It's $10 a month. And then you get to, and then TV becomes a little better like that because of similar to AEW. They have it seems like quarterly pay-per-views. We have now Revolution coming in February, and then Double or Nothing just got announced for May, pardon me. So there you go. You have they're spread out. TV's more interesting that way. And February could be SmackDown. Cool. We get a blowover because of Corbin and Reigns. And then next month we have Raw. Right, and then the Raws this month should have been top tier Raws because you don't have a pay-per-view that could feature, and they're 3 hours long. They're basically a pay-per-view in their damn selves. Mm-hmm. So why not just have them do something like that? And I to lend credence to what Remy's saying, it seems like they became a little lazy. How many of the surprising pay-per-views last year were actually decent, that weren't the big four? Right.
Well, and that's kind of where I'm heading towards with my thoughts. I'm hoping that if this new streaming brand comes through, that the network can still show Elimination Chamber or Extreme Rules or TLC, but maybe the big four go over to an Amazon, and then you're paying the $40 pay-per-view price for those shows. I can almost understand that. That way, nobody watches TLC. It's in December. It's a throwaway pay-per-view. Right. Because we all know that the Royal Rumble is when the build to WrestleMania starts. It's a throwaway show. But if it's on the network, and I'm spending $10 a month for it, okay, I'll watch it.
Yeah, there's plenty of times I just forget I'm even paying for the network.
Right, until the show comes on.
Yeah. Do you guys ever get that email because you haven't watched enough content in the month? They'd be like, hey, don't forget, TLC's this Sunday. I'm like, oh, actually, I did forget. Thank you.
Well, we thank you all for listening to our edition this week of the podcast. For Remy, Nick, Carlos, I'm Mark, and we will see you next time on the Entrance Ramp. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
See you around.
Thank you for listening to the Entrance Ramp Podcast. Please like us on Facebook at the Entrance Ramp Podcast. Follow us on Twitter at the Entrance Ramp Pod, and subscribe to us on YouTube by searching for the Entrance Ramp Podcast. We'll see you next time.